The emergency beacon cut through the silence of the Galactic Council chamber like a scream in the dark. Elder Priest Tanis appeared on the massive holographic display, his fragile body trembling as explosions lit up the sky behind him. His species, the Valak, looked like tall, gentle creatures with soft gray skin and large eyes that seemed too kind for the universe they inhabited. "Please," Tanis said, his voice breaking. "Anyone who can hear this, we are dying. The Krath are in our skies. They are burning our homes. Our children are hiding in the underground shelters, but the Krath are digging down to them. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. We only have days, maybe hours left. Please, someone help us." The transmission ended. The council chamber fell into an uncomfortable silence. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the observation gallery reserved for newer species. He was a broad-shouldered man with tired eyes and gray touching the edges of his dark hair. Next to him sat Dr. Lisa Grant, a woman in her 30s with sharp intelligence in her green eyes. She was humanity's xenobiologist, always eager to learn about new species. Behind them stood pilot Danny Cruz, young and restless, his fingers drumming against his leg. Engineer Kate Sullivan sat quietly, already running calculations on her portable screen. "We should help them," Lisa whispered to Jake. "Not our call," Jake replied, but his jaw was tight. He was watching the council members below. The Threll representative spoke first. He was a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms. "The Krath swarm has 600 vessels in that system. Their ground forces number over 200,000. The Velek colony has 4,000 civilians and no military. This is already over." A Quel'Thon counselor resembling a floating jellyfish in a containment suit added its thoughts. "Even if we sent forces, the Krath would overwhelm them. We would lose ships and soldiers for nothing. The Velek chose to settle in contested space. This is unfortunate, but not our responsibility." "Not our responsibility?" Lisa stood up, her voice sharp enough to echo in the chamber. Several alien heads turned toward her. "They're calling for help. They're dying." A Minoran delegate, small and covered in iridescent feathers, spoke gently. "Young human, you do not understand. The Krath cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be frightened away. They will fight until every last one of them dies or until they have consumed everything in their path. To fight them like this with such unfavorable numbers is suicide. We do not ask our people to die for lost causes. Then what do you ask them to die for?" Jake said, standing next to Lisa. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. The council members looked at each other. Finally, the Threll representative spoke again. "Human Commander, your species is new to this council. You come from what we classify as a Class 12 death world. We understand your planet's nature makes you more comfortable with violence and risk than most species. But this is not a fight. This is annihilation. The Velek will die. Anyone who tries to save them will die with them. So you're just going to watch?" Danny said from behind Jake. "Just let it happen?" "We will offer refuge to any Velek who escape on their own," the Quel'Thon said. "We will remember them. We will honor their loss, but we cannot save them." The council moved to the next item on their agenda. Just like that, the Velek were forgotten. Jake and his team left the chamber. They walked through the orbital station's gleaming corridors in silence. Other species moved around them, giving the humans a wide berth as always. Some looked curious. Others looked nervous. Humans had only been in space for 40 years, and the galaxy was still trying to figure out what to make of them. They reached their docking bay, where the Frontier Spirit waited. It was a human vessel, bulky and practical where most alien ships were sleek and elegant. It looked like it was built to take hits and keep flying. "We're going, aren't we?" Kate said. It wasn't really a question. Jake was quiet for a moment. He looked at his team. Lisa, who believed the galaxy could be a better place. Danny, who flew like gravity, was just a suggestion. Kate, who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. They had worked together for 3 years, ever since humanity formed its Rapid Response Division. "Command won't authorize it," Jake said. "Earth wants us to play nice with the Council, not make waves. Follow their lead." "Screw that," Danny said. Jake smiled just a little. "Yeah, screw that." He tapped his communicator. "Morrison to all crew. We've got a distress call to answer. Anyone who wants off, now's the time. No judgment, no record. This isn't official." Nobody left. Within the hour, the Frontier Spirit was prepped for launch. Jake filed a flight plan listing training exercise as their destination. The station's automated systems approved it without question. They were about to undock when a Threll appeared at the airlock. It was Quellen, a junior observer assigned to document human behavior for the council. He looked agitated, his forearms gesturing rapidly. Commander Morrison, I must insist you reconsider this action. The council has declared the Velic situation beyond salvage. If you proceed, you will be acting without authorization. The council may view this as aggression or instability on humanity's part. Noted, Jake said. You here to stop us? I cannot stop you, but I must ask why. Why would you do this? You have nothing to gain and everything to lose. Jake looked at the alien. A few thousand people are about to die. We can maybe help. That's reason enough, but you do not know them. They are not your species. You have no treaty obligations, no trade agreements, no shared history. They asked for help, Lisa said, stepping up beside Jake. That's all we need. Quellen's skin shifted colors, a sign of confusion in his species. This is not logical. Probably not, Kate said from her engineering station. We're going anyway. Quellen was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised them all. I am coming with you. The council requires documentation of human behavior in crisis situations. This certainly qualifies. It's going to be dangerous, Jake warned. I am aware. I have studied human combat footage. I have reviewed your species' history. I understand what I am boarding. Quellen stepped fully into the ship. I must see this for myself. The frontier spirit undocked and moved away from the station. Once they were clear, Danny opened the throttles. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, leaving the council and their debates behind. The journey to Taros 7 would take 4 days. During that time, Quellen got an education in human behavior that no amount of reports could have prepared him for. He watched Jake's team exercise in the cargo bay, something the commander insisted on every day. They lifted heavy metal bars loaded with weights. They ran in place for extended periods. They sparred with each other, actually hitting and being hit, then laughed about it afterward. Quellen found it disturbing. Most species kept their bodies in shape through chemical regulation or genetic optimization. Humans deliberately damaged their muscles so they would grow back stronger. He watched them eat meals that his scanner identified as dangerous. One dish contained capsaicin levels that should have caused severe pain. Danny ate it with a smile and asked for more. Kate drank a black liquid called coffee that was mildly toxic to 17 known species. Lisa explained that humans had evolved as persistence hunters and opportunistic omnivores, capable of eating an incredible variety of substances. Your bodies are remarkable, Quellen admitted during one meal, but also concerning. You seem to thrive on discomfort. We adapt, Jake said simply. Our planet taught us that, or we died. On the second day, Quellen observed the combat briefing. Jake had assembled 200 soldiers in the cargo bay. They were men and women of various ages, all volunteers. Sergeant Carlos Martinez stood at Jake's side. He was a stocky man with scars on his forearms and a grin that suggested he found most of life amusing. Jake explained the situation without sugarcoating it. The Krath outnumber us 1,000 to 1. They have orbital superiority. They have better positions. We're going in to extract 4,000 civilians from an active combat zone while under constant attack. Most military doctrines would call this impossible. Good thing we don't follow most military doctrines, Carlos said. Several soldiers laughed. Jake continued. Our job is simple. Get in. Establish a perimeter. Get every Velic onto this ship. Get out. We're not there to win the war. We're there to save lives. Questions? A young soldier raised her hand. Commander, what if we can't get them all out? Jake met her eyes. Then we stay until we do. The room fell silent. Quellen watched as understanding passed through the group. They knew what Jake was saying. They might not come back. Nobody protested. Nobody asked to be reassigned. Quellen found this deeply troubling. After the briefing, he approached Jake privately. Commander, your soldiers accepted a suicide mission without question. How do you command such loyalty? I don't command their loyalty, Jake said. They're here because they choose to be, because they believe some things are worth the risk. Your lives, if necessary. Quellen's skin turned a dark blue, indicating distress. I do not understand your species. The council was correct. You are dangerous, but not in the way they think. On the third day, Dr. Lisa Grant gave Quellen a tour of the medical bay. Medic Amy Chen was there, a young woman with steady hands and kind eyes. She was preparing supplies for the mission. The frontier spirit hit the ground hard. its landing gear crushing a Krath war machine beneath it. The cargo ramp dropped before the engines finished powering down. 200 human soldiers poured out into hell. Carlos Martinez was first off the ramp, his rifle already firing. The Krath closest to the ship went down in a spray of green blood. His squad fanned out behind him, establishing a perimeter in seconds. The Krath had never seen anything move that fast with that much coordination. Jake followed with the command team, his eyes scanning the battlefield. The Velik stronghold was worse than the briefing suggested. The walls were crumbling. Bodies lay in the streets. The survivors huddled in buildings, too terrified to even look outside. And everywhere the Krath pressed forward, their insectoid bodies moving with unsettling speed. "Martinez, hold this position," Jake ordered. "Lisa, you're with me. We need to find Tanis and organize the evacuation." "On it, boss," Carlos said, dropping behind a piece of rubble. His squad set up firing positions, their weapons barking out a steady rhythm. The Krath tried to push through. They died trying. Jake and Lisa ran toward the largest building, the one Tanis had been transmitting from. Kate stayed with the ship, already working on reinforcing the shields. Danny lifted off again, taking the frontier spirit back into the air to provide cover from above. They reached the building to find Velik civilians pressed against the walls, staring at them with huge, terrified eyes. They were tall but thin, their gray skin covered in dust and dried blood. Some held children. All of them looked like they had given up hope days ago. "We're here to help," Lisa said, her voice gentle. She had removed her helmet so they could see her face. "We're going to get you out of here." A young Velik female, barely adult, spoke in a trembling voice. "You are predators. I can see it in your eyes. Your teeth. Are you here to eat us like the Krath?" Lisa felt her heart break a little. "No, sweetie. We're here to protect you. I know we look scary, but we're the good guys, I promise." Tanis emerged from a back room. He looked even older in person, his body bent with exhaustion and grief. When he saw Jake, something like hope flickered in his eyes. "You are human." "You actually came." "We came," Jake said, "but we need to move fast." "How many survivors?" 4,200, Tanis said. "Most are in the underground shelters. Some are scattered in buildings throughout the stronghold. The children are deepest underground. We thought it would be safest." "It was the right call," Jake assured him. "The Krath don't give up, but they're not good at adapting." "We can use that. Lisa, start getting people organized. Groups of 50. We'll move them to the ship in waves." "The Krath will slaughter anyone who tries to move in the open," Tanis said. "Not if they're busy dealing with us," Jake replied. He activated his communicator. "All units, this is Morrison. We're running Extraction Protocol Delta. Secure routes to the ship and prepare to receive civilians." Outside, the battle intensified. Tech specialist Ryan Foster set up his electronic warfare equipment on top of a building. He was a thin man with quick hands and quicker thinking. His screens lit up with Krath communication signals. "They're calling in reinforcements," Ryan said into his communicator. "Lots of them. We've got maybe 30 minutes before this place is swarming with every Krath in the system." "Then we better work fast," Carlos said. He watched another wave of Krath approaching. They moved in predictable patterns, relying on numbers rather than tactics. "Stupid bugs. They just keep coming straight at us." His assessment was correct. The Krath were used to overwhelming their enemies through sheer weight of numbers. They had never faced an enemy that could hold a position against odds like this. They had never fought humans. The human soldiers used the ruins of the Velik city to their advantage. They set up crossfires that turned Krath advances into killing zones. They used the high ground, picking off enemies from windows and rooftops. When the Krath tried to flank, they found more humans waiting. When they tried to push through with armored units, Danny swooped down in the frontier spirit and reduced them to scrap metal. Amy Chen moved through the chaos with calm efficiency. She had set up a triage station near the ship. When the first group of Velik civilians reached it, she was ready. She treated their wounds with gentle hands, speaking softly to calm them even as explosions rocked the ground nearby. A Velik child, no more than 5 years old by their standards, clutched her arm. "Are the monsters going to eat us?" "No, baby," Amy said, carefully bandaging a cut on his head. "See those humans with the guns? They're keeping the monsters away. You're safe now." The child looked at the human soldiers fighting nearby. To Velik eyes, humans looked almost as terrifying as the Krath. They had forward-facing eyes, sharp teeth, Their bodies were thick with muscle built for hunting and killing. But these humans were standing between the Velik and the things that wanted to kill them. They are scary, the child said. But they are our scary, Amy smiled. That's right. We're your scary. The first wave of evacuees made it to the ship. Kate had prepared the cargo bays to hold as many people as possible. It was going to be cramped. It was going to be uncomfortable. But they would fit. They had to fit. Quellen watched everything from the ship, his skin cycling through colors so fast it looked like a light show. He had seen combat footage before. He had studied human military operations. But seeing it in person was different. The humans moved through the battlefield like they were born to it. They communicated in short bursts, each one trusting the others to do their jobs. They made impossible shots look routine. They held positions that should have been overrun in minutes, and they were enjoying it. Not the killing exactly, but the challenge of it, the chance to test themselves against overwhelming odds. Quellen realized with growing horror that humans had turned warfare into something like a sport. They had refined violence into an art form that 20,000 years of evolution on a deadly planet had perfected. Second wave incoming. Lisa's voice crackled over the communicator. She was leading a group of Velik through the streets, her weapon ready. Ryan had hacked into the Krath communications and was feeding her the safest route. 2 other soldiers flanked the civilians, their eyes scanning for threats. They were halfway to the ship when Krath warriors burst from a building. There were dozens of them, their mandibles clicking with anticipation. Lisa opened fire immediately, dropping 3. Her escorts took down more, but there were too many. Then Danny brought the frontier spirit around, its guns blazing. The street exploded in fire and debris. When the smoke cleared, the Krath were gone. The civilians were safe. You're getting better at that, Lisa said into her communicator. Practice makes perfect, Danny replied, already circling around for another pass. By the second hour, they had evacuated 1,200 Velik. The Krath were getting smarter, trying different approaches. They sent flyers to attack from above. Danny shot them down. They tried tunneling under the defenses. Ryan detected the vibrations and Carlos's team collapsed the tunnels with explosives. They brought in heavier weapons. The humans adapted faster. Jake stood on the stronghold's wall watching the battle unfold. His soldiers were performing miracles, but he could see the cost. They were getting tired. Ammunition was running low. The Krath had reinforcements coming. The math was simple and brutal. They could hold for maybe 6 more hours. They needed 8 to evacuate everyone. We're going to need to make a choice, Carlos said, climbing up beside him. His armor was scorched from a near miss. We can get most of them out. Maybe 3,000. But the rest, we get them all out, Jake said firmly. Every single one. Boss, I'm with you. You know that. But the numbers don't work. Jake looked at his old friend. They had served together for 15 years. Carlos had saved his life twice. Jake had returned the favor 3 times. Then we changed the numbers. Get me Ryan. Ryan appeared a few minutes later, his equipment slung over his shoulder. Commander? Those Krath reinforcements, when do they arrive? 28 minutes, Ryan said, checking his screens. 3,000 ground troops plus air support. Can you slow them down? Ryan thought about it. Maybe. The Krath use a hive mind network for coordination. I've been studying it. If I could introduce a virus into their communications, it might cause confusion. Buy us some time. How much time? An hour, maybe 2 if we're lucky. But boss, creating that kind of virus on the fly under combat conditions with their network actively trying to shut me out, that's really hard. Jake put a hand on the younger man's shoulder. Ryan, you're the best tech specialist in the fleet. If anyone can do it, it's you. Ryan nodded, his jaw set. I'll need complete focus. Someone will have to protect me while I work. I'll handle that personally, Carlos said. Me and my squad. Nobody gets close to you. Do it, Jake ordered. Lisa, increase the evacuation pace. I want groups of 75 now. Amy, prepare for mass casualties. This is about to get messy. The 3rd hour was when everything went wrong. Ryan successfully infected the Krath network, but the Krath adapted faster than expected. They switched to manual coordination, slower but still effective. The reinforcements arrived early. Suddenly the humans were facing not thousands of Krath but tens of thousands. This is bad, Carlos said, his rifle empty. He drew his pistol and kept firing. The Krath came like a tsunami of chitin and rage. They filled the streets, climbed over rubble, poured through every gap in the defenses. There were so many of them that the ground itself seemed to move with their numbers. Any sane species would have broken and run. Any logical species would have surrendered. Humans did neither. Jake stood on what remained of the stronghold's wall, calmly picking his targets. Each shot dropped a Krath. He had stopped counting after the first 100. It did not matter anymore. Numbers were meaningless now. All that mattered was buying time. They just keep coming, Ryan said from his position behind a makeshift barricade. He had given up on electronic warfare. Now he was fighting with a rifle like everyone else. His hands shook slightly, but his aim stayed true. That's their whole strategy, Carlos said. He had set up a heavy machine gun and was methodically cutting down Krath by the dozens. They've never needed to be smart. Weight of numbers always worked before. It's working now, Ryan pointed out. Not yet it isn't, Carlos replied, changing his ammunition belt without taking his eyes off the enemy. We're still here. They're still dying. That's close enough to winning for me. The Velik who remained watched from the underground shelters. Tanis stood at one of the observation ports, his old eyes witnessing something he had never imagined possible. The humans were outnumbered at least 100 to 1 now, maybe more. The Krath warriors were bigger, stronger, built for killing. The humans should have been overwhelmed in minutes, but the humans fought like the universe itself had personally insulted them. They used every trick, every advantage, every piece of terrain. When their rifles ran empty, they used pistols. When those ran out, they used knives. When the knives broke, they used their hands. One soldier, surrounded by Krath warriors, triggered explosives he had strapped to his own chest rather than let them pass. The explosion cleared a whole section of the wall. They are insane, a young Velik said, his voice filled with awe and horror. They are heroes, Tanis corrected softly. They are dying for us. The least we can do is remember. Jake's communicator crackled with Kate's voice from the frontier spirit already halfway to orbit. Commander, we've cleared the atmosphere. We're safe. We can be back in 6 hours and make it 4, Jake said, shooting another Krath. We'll try to keep the welcome mat out. Jake, the scanners are showing at least 50,000 Krath converging on your position. You can't hold that long. Watch us, Jake said. Then he switched channels. All units, this is Morrison. The civilians are safe. First part of the job is done. Now we just have to stay alive long enough to finish it. I know you're tired. I know we're out of options. But we're human. We don't quit, we adapt. So let's adapt to this. Carlos laughed over the open channel. Boss, there's adapting and then there's magic. This might need magic. Then we'll make magic happen, Jake said. Ryan's status on the shelters? Sealed and secure, Ryan confirmed. The Krath can't dig through the doors. Not quickly anyway. The Velik are safe as long as we keep the Krath busy. Then let's keep them very busy, Jake said. The 4th hour was brutal. The humans fell back from the outer walls, giving up ground to conserve ammunition. They turned every building into a fortress, every street into a killing ground. The Krath had to pay in blood for every meter they advanced, and they paid willingly because the Krath did not understand retreat. They only understood forward. A young soldier named Pete got hit by Krath acid spray. It burned through his armor and into his shoulder. He screamed, dropped his rifle, then picked it up again with his other hand and kept fighting. Amy had stayed behind with the defenders. She reached Pete during a brief lull, her medical supplies nearly exhausted. How bad? Pete asked through gritted teeth. Amy looked at the wound. It was bad, real bad. In a proper hospital with proper equipment, she could fix it. Here, with nothing but field supplies and Krath everywhere, her options were limited. I can stop the pain. Give you something to keep you fighting. Do it, Pete said. I'm not done yet. She injected him with a mixture of painkillers and stimulants that would have killed most species. Pete just nodded his thanks and returned to his position. 20 minutes later, he died holding a doorway against 30 Krath warriors. None of them got past him. The Krath tried new tactics. They sent their flyers to attack from above. Carlos shot them down with a shoulder-mounted rocket launcher he had found in the Velik armory. The Krath tried to burn them out with their acid weapons. The humans retreated to stone buildings that did not burn. The Krath brought in their war machines, massive vehicles covered in weapons and armor. Jake watched the war machines approaching. Ryan, please tell me you have something for those. Ryan was covered in dust and blood, none of it his yet. He studied the approaching vehicles with exhausted eyes. I might. The Velik had mining equipment. Really powerful mining equipment. If I can get to it and reconfigure the laser drills as weapons, we could punch through that armor. Where's the equipment? Wrong side of the Krath advance. Jake looked at the map. Ryan was right. The mining depot was now behind enemy lines. Getting there would be impossible. Coming back would be even worse. How long to set it up? 10 minutes, maybe 15. I'll get you there, Carlos said. Me and what's left of my squad. We'll hold the depot until you're done. That's suicide, Ryan said flatly. Everything we've done today is suicide, Carlos replied. This is just one more impossible thing before breakfast. Jake wanted to say no, wanted to find another way, but there was no other way. Do it, be fast. Be smart, come back alive. Carlos grinned, that same crazy grin he had worn for 15 years. 2 out of 3 isn't bad. He took 5 soldiers and Ryan. They moved out during the Krath's next push, using the chaos as cover. Jake watched them disappear into the smoke and rubble, knowing he might never see his oldest friend again. The Krath war machines reached the human positions. They were enormous, 30 feet tall and covered in weapons. Their armor was designed to withstand ship-to-ship weapons. Infantry weapons should have bounced off them harmlessly. Should have. Jake and his soldiers concentrated their fire on the joints and sensors. They aimed for the weak points with precision that spoke of decades of human warfare against superior technology. One machine went down when they destroyed its leg actuators. Another fell when they blinded its sensors and it crashed into a building. A third exploded when a soldier managed to get close enough to plant explosives inside an ammunition port, but more kept coming. And the humans were running out of ammunition. Jake was down to his pistol. Most soldiers were using weapons they had picked up from fallen Krath, alien designs that did not quite fit human hands but worked well enough. Then the mining lasers opened up from the depot. 3 beams of concentrated energy, designed to cut through solid rock, slice through the war machines like they were made of paper. The Krath vehicles exploded in spectacular fashion, their ammunition cooking off in secondary explosions. Mining equipment online. Ryan's voice crackled over the communicator. He sounded exhausted but triumphant. How do you like that, you overgrown bugs? Beautiful work, Jake said. Now get back here. Working on it, boss. The Krath noticed us. We're slightly surrounded. Define slightly, Jake said, already knowing he would not like the answer. All sides, above and below. But other than that, we're fine. Carlos's voice cut in. We're going to try to punch through the east side. It looks thinnest. If we don't make it, boss, it's been an honor. The honor was mine, Jake said quietly. Give them hell, Carlos. Always do, Carlos replied. For 10 minutes, Jake listened to the sounds of fighting from the depot. Explosions, gunfire, screaming in both human and Krath voices. The mining lasers kept firing, destroying more war machines, but Jake knew Carlos and his team were fighting for their lives. Then the lasers went silent. The communicator filled with static. Carlos? Jake said. Ryan? Anyone? Nothing. Jake felt something cold settle in his chest. Carlos had been his friend since basic training. They had fought together, bled together, saved each other's lives more times than he could count. The idea of a universe without Carlos in it seemed wrong somehow. Then Ryan's voice came through, weak but alive. We're coming. Carlos bought us time. Boss, Carlos didn't make it, but we're coming. Jake closed his eyes for just a moment. When he opened them, they were cold and hard. Copy that. We'll cover your approach. Carlos's sacrifice won't be wasted. Ryan and 2 surviving soldiers fought their way back to the main position. They were covered in wounds and moving on pure adrenaline. The Krath tried to stop them. Jake and his remaining forces made sure they failed. By the time Ryan collapsed behind the barricade, the Krath had paid for Carlos's life with hundreds of their own. I'm sorry, boss, Ryan said. We couldn't get him out. He stayed behind so we could run. He took out at least 50 of them before. He died like he lived, Jake said, making the impossible possible. He'd appreciate the symmetry. Amy checked Ryan's wounds. He had been cut, burned, and beaten. By all rights, he should have been unconscious. But he was still moving, still functional. That was the human gift. The ability to keep going when everything said to stop. The 5th hour came. The Krath had lost thousands. The humans had lost dozens. But mathematics did not care about courage or determination. The frontier spirit limped through space like a wounded animal. Its hull was scorched black. Its shields were completely down. And half its systems were held together by Kate's engineering genius and sheer stubbornness. But it was moving, and everyone aboard was alive. That was enough. Jake woke up in the medical bay 3 days after they left Taros 7. His body hurt in places he did not know could hurt. Amy was beside his bed, looking exhausted but satisfied. "How bad?" Jake asked, his voice rough. "Broken ribs, concussion, severe burns on your left arm, various cuts and bruises," Amy listed. "You'll live. Most of you will live. We lost 69 on Taros 7. 31 made it back." Jake closed his eyes. 69 soldiers dead. That was almost a third of his force. Each one had a name. Each one had a family back home. Each one had chosen to come anyway, knowing the risks. It did not make it hurt less. "The Velik?" he asked. "All alive. Every single one. 4,200 civilians, including 600 children. You did it, Jake. You got them all out." "We did it," Jake corrected. "And we paid for it," Amy nodded. Carlos's loss hit everyone hard. He was the heart of this unit. "He was my friend," Jake said quietly. "For 15 years he had my back. I should have been there with him." "He wouldn't want that," Amy said. "He died buying time for others. That was his choice. Honor it by living with it." Jake knew she was right. It did not make it easier. Over the next few days, as the Frontier spirit made its way back to Council space, life aboard settled into a strange routine. The Velik had never been on a spacecraft before. Everything terrified them. The engines were too loud. The corridors were too narrow. The humans were too intense. Lisa spent her time helping them adjust. She walked through the cargo bays where the Velik were housed, answering questions, calming fears. The Velik children were especially scared. They had nightmares about the Krath, about the sounds of battle, about watching their world burn, but they were also fascinated by the humans. These creatures who had seemed like monsters at first but had fought and bled to save them. A young Velik girl named Mira followed Lisa everywhere, asking endless questions. "Why did you come?" Mira asked for the 10th time. "Because you needed help," Lisa answered patiently. "But you did not know us. We are not your species. Does that matter?" Lisa asked. Mira thought about this for a long time. In Velik culture, family and tribe were everything. The idea of risking your life for complete strangers was foreign. "On Earth, do you help everyone?" "We try," Lisa said. "We don't always succeed, but we try, even when it is dangerous, especially when it is dangerous. That's when help matters most." Mira was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and took Lisa's hand. "I was scared of you at first. Your teeth are sharp. Your eyes are like a hunter's, but you have a kind heart. You're a strange human," Lisa smiled. "You're pretty strange yourself, kiddo." Quellen spent his time observing and recording. His mission was to document human behavior for the Council. He had certainly gotten more documentation than he expected. He had watched humans fight against impossible odds. He had seen them sacrifice themselves for people they did not know. He had witnessed acts of courage that his species could barely comprehend. He found Jake on the observation deck a week into their journey. The commander was staring out at the stars, his arm in a sling, his face still bruised. "Commander Morrison," Quellen said. "May I speak with you?" "It's a free ship," Jake replied. "Or it was before it became a refugee transport." Quellen's skin shifted to a thoughtful purple. "I have been trying to understand what I witnessed on Taros 7. My species has been spacefaring for 2,000 years. We have studied warfare extensively. What your soldiers did should not have been possible." "We're stubborn," Jake said. "Earth taught us that. It is more than stubbornness. You held position against overwhelming odds. You adapted constantly. You sacrificed yourselves without hesitation. Most concerning, you seem to thrive in the chaos. Combat appears to activate something in your species." Jake was quiet for a moment. "My great-grandfather told me something once. He said humans are persistence hunters. Back on Earth, before we had tools or weapons, we hunted by just following prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're not the fastest. We're not the strongest. But we don't stop, ever. That's built into us at a genetic level. But this was not hunting. This was warfare against a superior force." "Same principle," Jake said. "The Krath thought numbers would win. They thought we would break and run when things got bad. But we're from a planet where everything tried to kill us for millions of years. We learned not to run. We learned to fight back, to adapt, to survive even when survival seemed impossible." Quellen's skin turned an alarmed orange. "Commander, do you understand what this means for the galaxy? Your species is naturally selected for warfare. You are the perfect soldiers." "We're survivors," Jake corrected. "There's a difference. We don't fight because we enjoy it. We fight because sometimes that's the only option left. And when we fight to protect, not to conquer. The Council will not see it that way. They will see Deathworlders who can hold against 1,000-to-1 odds. They will be terrified. Jake turned to look at the alien. Good, maybe they should be. Maybe if they're scared of us, they'll think twice before letting another species die when they could have helped. Tanis found Jake later that day. The old Velik looked better now, his body recovering from the stress. But his eyes still held sadness. Commander Morrison, I need to speak with you about what happened. What about it? Jake asked. The cost. So many of your soldiers died to save us. I cannot stop thinking about it. Their families will grieve. Their friends will mourn, all because I sent that distress call. Jake put a hand on Tanis's shoulder, careful to be gentle. The Velik were fragile compared to humans. Elder Tanis, those soldiers volunteered. Every single one of them. They knew the risks. They chose to come anyway because they believe some things are worth dying for. But why? We are strangers to you. Does that matter? Jake asked, echoing Lisa's words. You needed help. We could provide it. That's enough. I will never understand your species, Tanis said softly. You are terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. We're just human, Jake said. That's all we've ever been. The frontier spirit finally reached Council space on the 10th day. As they approached the orbital station, Kate received a message. Commander, we're being hailed by the Council. They want to speak with you immediately. Tell them I'll be there as soon as we dock and get these people settled. Jake replied. They're being pretty insistent. And Commander, there are 17 other ships here, all carrying refugees, all requesting human assistance. Jake felt something heavy settle in his chest. What happened? News of Terra 7 spread. Other species under attack are specifically asking for human help. The Council is in chaos. Half of them want to censure us for acting without authorization. The other half want to hire us as mercenaries. We're not mercenaries, Jake said firmly. We're rescue workers who happen to be good at fighting. The frontier spirit docked. Medical teams were waiting to help the Velik. The refugees were taken to temporary housing while the Council processed asylum requests. Jake's surviving soldiers were treated as heroes by some and dangerous variables by others. Nobody quite knew what to make of them. Jake was called before the full Council 2 days later. He stood in the chamber where this had all started, looking up at the representatives of 47 species. He wore his dress uniform. It still had scorch marks from Terra 7. He had refused to change into a clean one. Let them see what their inaction had cost. The Threll representative spoke first. Commander Morrison, you acted without Council authorization. You took military forces into an active combat zone. You engaged in warfare that resulted in significant casualties on all sides. By what right did you do this? By the right of common decency, Jake replied. You received a distress call. You decided to do nothing. We decided differently. A Quelthon counselor floated forward. You risked your lives and ships for people you did not know. This is not logical behavior. Logic isn't everything, Jake said. Sometimes you have to do what's right, even when it's not smart. 69 humans died, another representative said. Was it worth it? Jake felt anger flare but kept his voice level. Ask the 4,000 Velik who are alive. Ask their children. Ask their families. Then tell me it wasn't worth it. Tanis stepped forward from the visitors' gallery. Honored counselors, may I speak? The council members looked at each other, then nodded. Tanis walked to the center of the chamber. His old body moved with dignity despite his fear. My people were dying. We sent out a call for help to every species in the council. Everyone said no. Everyone said it was too dangerous, too costly, too risky. Everyone except the humans. The humans are reckless, a counselor said. They do not understand the value of caution. The humans are brave, Tanis corrected. They understand that some things matter more than personal safety. Every one of my people is alive because humans chose to risk everything for strangers. We owe them a debt we can never repay. They are Deathworlders, another counselor argued. They thrive on violence. This is in their nature. Yes, Tanis agreed. They are dangerous. They are fierce. They are built. 6 months after Terra 7, the Human Rapid Response Division had become a legend across the galaxy. Ships bearing the Earth insignia were met with hope by those in need and fear by those who preyed on the weak. The Krath had learned to avoid systems where humans operated. Other hostile species were beginning to learn the same lesson. Jake stood on the bridge of the new vessel, the Terra's Promise. It was 3 times the size of the Frontier Spirit, with proper medical facilities, enhanced weapons, and room for 1,000 soldiers. Earth had been generous with funding after Taro 7. The Council had contributed as well, though Jake suspected it was partly to keep humans under observation. "Commander, we're receiving multiple distress signals," Kate said from her station. She had been promoted to chief engineer and was thriving in the role. 3 different systems, all under attack by different hostile forces. "Can we respond to all 3? Jake asked. "Not at once. We'd need to split our forces." Jake studied the tactical display, a mining colony under siege by pirates, a research station being overrun by a hive mind infection, a civilian transport stranded in hostile territory. Each one needed help. Each one needed it now. "Contact the Swift Response and the Guardian," Jake ordered. Those were the other 2 ships in their fleet, both crewed by human volunteers and a growing number of aliens who wanted to learn their methods. "Coordinate a response. We'll take the research station. They can handle the other 2. "Splitting our forces like this is risky," Lisa said. She had become his first officer, the voice of caution that balanced his determination. "Everything we do is risky," Jake replied. "That's why they call us." The Terra's promise jumped to faster than light speed. On the way, Jake reviewed the crew. 200 human soldiers, all volunteers. 50 alien specialists from a dozen species, including Quellen. Medical teams led by Amy. Engineering teams led by Kate. Scientists led by Lisa. They had become a family of sorts, bound together by shared danger and shared purpose. Young Pete's sister, Sarah, had joined after her brother's death. She wore his dog tags and carried his rifle. When Jake had tried to talk her out of enlisting, she had looked at him with her brother's determination and said, "He died doing something that mattered. I want to live doing the same." They arrived at the research station to find it in chaos. The hive mind infection had turned half the staff into mindless drones, attacking the other half. The station's security forces were overwhelmed. Within hours, everyone would be infected or dead. "This is going to be tricky," Amy said, reviewing the medical data. "The infection spreads through physical contact. We'll need to be careful." "Careful is not really our style," Danny said from the pilot's seat. He was preparing a shuttle to take the first team down. "Then we'll be carefully reckless," Jake decided. "Full quarantine protocols. Sealed suits. No physical contact with infected personnel. Lisa, can we cure this?" "Maybe," Lisa said, her fingers flying across her console. "The infection is organic, not technological. If I can isolate the pathogen, I might be able to synthesize a treatment, but I'll need samples. Live samples." "I'll get you samples," Sarah volunteered immediately. "It's dangerous," Jake warned. "Everything is dangerous," Sarah replied, echoing his earlier words. "That's why they call us." The team deployed to the station. They moved through corridors filled with infected crew members who attacked on sight. The humans used non-lethal weapons when possible, subduing rather than killing. It was harder, more dangerous, but they were there to save lives, not take them. Sarah captured 3 infected crew members, securing them in containment fields despite the risk. She moved with her brother's precision and her own fierce determination. When an infected scientist broke free and lunged at her, she dodged with the reflexes Earth had bred into its children and secured him again without harming him. Lisa worked in the mobile lab, her hands steady despite the pressure. Quellen assisted her, his forearms allowing him to run multiple tests simultaneously. "This pathogen is engineered," Lisa said. "Someone made this deliberately. Who would create something like this?" Quellen asked, horrified. "Someone who wanted a weapon," Lisa replied grimly. "But weapons can be defeated. We just need to find the weakness." She worked for 6 hours straight, running test after test. The other team members rotated on and off duty, but Lisa refused to rest. Finally, she found it. A protein sequence in the pathogen that responded to a specific compound. "I can neutralize it. But we'll need to synthesize enough treatment for everyone on the station." "How long?" Jake asked. 4 hours, maybe 5. "You've got 3, Jake said. "The infection is spreading. After that, we'll have more infected than we have treatment." Lisa nodded and got to work. Kate helped her jerry-rig the station's medical fabricators to produce the treatment faster. Amy prepared delivery systems. The whole crew worked together, each person doing their part. Meanwhile, Jake and his soldiers held the infected at bay. They barricaded corridors, created safe zones, extracted uninfected personnel. It was exhausting work requiring constant vigilance. One touch could mean infection. One mistake could cost lives. A young researcher trapped in a lab broadcast a desperate plea. Anyone who can hear this, I'm sealed in Lab 7. The infected are breaking through the door. I have maybe 10 minutes, please. Danny heard the call. I can get there. The corridor is full of infected, Kate warned. Checking the station schematics. Then I'll go through the vents, Danny said. Already moving. Danny, wait, Jake started. But the pilot was gone. Danny crawled through the station's ventilation system, moving with the confidence of someone who had never met an obstacle he could not overcome. He reached Lab 7 with minutes to spare, dropped through a ceiling panel and grabbed the terrified researcher. Together, they climbed back through the vents as infected crew members pounded on the lab door below. You're insane, the researcher gasped as Danny pulled him to safety. I'm human, Danny corrected. Close enough. Lisa finished the treatment with 30 minutes to spare. Amy's teams deployed throughout the station, administering it to the infected. The effect was immediate. The pathogen died, the mindless aggression faded, and the crew members returned to themselves. Confused and horrified by what they had done while infected, the station commander, a Quelthon named Varys, found Jake as the last of the infected were being treated. You saved us, all of us. We thought we were dead. That's what we do, Jake said simply. Save people. But why? Varys asked the eternal question. We are not your species. You gain nothing from this. Jake thought about Pete, about Carlos, about all the ones who had died doing this work. We gained plenty. We gained the knowledge that when someone needed help, we were there. That's worth more than any payment. Back on the Terra's Promise, Jake received a transmission from the other two ships. The mining colony was secure. The civilian transport was safe. All 3 missions successful with minimal casualties. The Human Rapid Response Division was living up to its reputation, but success came with a price. More requests poured in every day. Species that had once been too proud to ask for help were now desperate for human assistance. The Council was struggling to prioritize which distress calls to forward. We can't save everyone, Lisa said one night, finding Jake in his quarters. He was staring at a list of pending requests. 24 calls for help, each one representing lives in danger. I know, Jake said, but that doesn't make choosing any easier. You're going to burn out if you try to solve every problem in the galaxy. Then I'll burn out, Jake replied. But I'll do it helping people. Lisa sat down beside him. Jake, you're not responsible for the entire galaxy. You're one person commanding one division. You can't be everywhere at once. But I can be somewhere, Jake said. Every time we respond, we save lives. Every time we say no, people die. How do I live with that? By remembering that you're human, not a god. You do what you can, accept what you can't, and keep moving forward. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled just a little. When did you become so wise? I've been hanging around a very stubborn commander who keeps doing impossible things, Lisa said. It rubs off. The next day brought a call that changed everything. It came from Krath Space, of all places. A voice speaking broken galactic standard filled with desperation. This is Warrior Caste Threka. My hive is under attack. Our queens are dying. We request assistance from the humans. The bridge fell silent. The Krath were asking humans for help. The species they had fought on Taros 7. The species that had killed thousands of their warriors. It's a trap, Sarah said immediately. Probably, Jake agreed. But what if it's not? What if they really need help? They tried to genocide the Velic, someone pointed out. They're murderers. And we're supposed to be better than them, Jake replied. He looked at his crew, seeing the conflict on their faces. Helping the Krath felt wrong on every level, but refusing felt wrong too. Quellen spoke up, his skin a thoughtful purple. Commander, may I offer an observation? The galaxy is watching how humans respond to these situations. If you only help species you like, you are no different from the Council that ignored the Velic. But if you help everyone, even your enemies, you prove that human compassion is real, not selective, Jake nodded slowly. We're not going to fight for the Krath, but we'll